Hey guys, today in social studies, we're going to be talking about the difference between supply and demand. We've been talking about a lot of things with economics like wants and needs and goods and services, producers and consumers. Supply and demand is when we're thinking about how much of something a producer has and if there are a lot of consumers or customers who want that item. Right now is kind of an interesting time for that because I'm sure you've heard a lot about things like toilet paper with the coronavirus going on. Right now, there is a really high demand for toilet paper because lots of people are wanting to buy that, but there's a very little supply. So when parents are going to the stores to buy it, the shelves are empty. So supply is how much a producer has of something. Like right now, there's not a lot of toilet paper, there's a very low supply. And demand is how many people want that item. Right now, there's a very high demand for toilet paper. People just can't get it because the supply is so low. So, we're going to look at some examples of supply and demand that you might see at school so that we can tell the difference between a high supply and a low supply and a high demand and a low demand. So, I'm going to open up a PowerPoint and we're going to look at it from the beginning. So we're going to look at supply and demand with some school situations and talk about if there's a low supply and a high demand or a high supply and a low demand. So for the first one, this has definitely happened to us before. The teacher has 3 computers and 20 students who want to use them. What is the supply and demand of the computers? Well, in this situation, we only have 3 computers to share, but 20 people want to use them. So we don't have enough computers. We have a low supply of computers, but a high demand of students who want to use them. So this is low supply, high demand. Okay, imagine it's recess time that we go outside and there are lots of basketballs, but the kids decide to play football instead. So, what is the supply and demand of the basketballs? Well, in this situation, we have a lot of basketballs, but nobody who wants to play with them. So, we have a high supply of basketballs, but a low demand of kids wanting to play with those. High supply, low demand. Prize box time. All the candy has been picked through. You know how our jar looks sometimes when there's not much left in it, but there's a lot of gum left. The students pick over the gum and choose other things. What is the supply and demand of gum? Well, we've got a lot of gum, but nobody really wants it, so there's a low demand for it. We have a high supply of gum and a low demand. At recess, imagine we've gone out to the little playground where the swings are, and there are only a few swings. The kids have to wait their turn for the swings. So, if lots of kids are waiting for a turn on the swings, what is the supply and demand of the swings? We have just a few swings, so a low supply of them, but a high demand of kids wanting them. Low supply, high demand. The American Girl dolls are so popular that the stores can barely keep them on the shelves. Sometimes they are sold out completely. What is the supply and demand of American Girl dolls? So, if there are not enough American Girl dolls, we have a low supply of those. But we have a high demand, people really wanting them. Just like that toilet paper we talked about, there are more people who want the American Girl dolls than there are dolls to buy. So this is a situation where we have a low supply and a high demand. All right, now we're heading to the lunchroom. A lot of kids have learned that white milk is healthier than chocolate milk, so they choose it more during lunchtime. The cafeteria now has a lot of chocolate milk. So what's the supply and demand of chocolate milk? If they have a lot of chocolate milk left over, that's their supply. So they have a high supply of chocolate milk, but not many kids are choosing it because it's not as healthy. So they have a high supply, but a low demand of kids who are wanting to drink it. Still in the lunchroom, the kids love the cheese sticks in the lunchroom. Every Wednesday, the lunchroom sells out of cheese sticks. So what's the supply and demand of cheese sticks? If you've got lots of kids who want to buy those cheese sticks, That's a high demand for them. But if they're selling out, that means they don't have enough to meet that high demand. Their supply is too low. So they have a low supply of cheese sticks, but a high demand of kids who want to eat them. We've read some of these Henry and Mudge books before, and we know they're great. So in this situation, the teacher did an author study of Cynthia Rylant, the author of the Henry and Mudge books. Now, all the kids in the class want to read Henry and Mudge. They have to take turns and share. So what's the supply and demand of Henry and Mudge books? Well, in this situation, we have just a few Henry and Mudge books, but the whole class has to share them. We have a low supply of books and a high demand of kids wanting to read them. This has happened also to us before. There's a field trip coming up, and many parents want to be the chaperone on the field trip. However, the teacher can only take 3 parents. So, quite a few of those parents will be disappointed. There's only room for 3 parents, even though lots of parents want to go. So, what is the supply and demand of parent chaperones? In this situation, we have a lot of parent chaperones, a high supply of people saying, "Ooh, choose me, choose me." But there's only room for 3. There's a low demand for chaperones. We just don't need that many. So we have a high supply of parents wanting to be chaperones, but a low demand of how many chaperones we actually need. All the fancy pencils have been taken and tons of plain yellow pencils are left. What's the supply and demand of yellow pencils? Well, if we have tons of them left over, lots of yellow pencils, that's a high supply. And the reason we have a high supply is because there's not enough demand for them. People don't want the plain yellow pencils, they want the fancy ones. So we have a high supply and a low demand. So hopefully that helped you kind of understand what's going on when you visit the stores and you see that they've run out of things like toilet paper and hand sanitizer and paper towels and Clorox wipes, because right now we have a very high demand for those things, but the stores do not have enough supplies for everyone to get what they're wanting to buy when they go there. So I hope that helped you understand supply and demand, and I'll be making some more social studies videos soon. Bye.